we rewind for a little bit? You said you didn't get paid for 4 months.
Yeah.
From TriCare. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the end of
Sadly, Meghan's story is not the only one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would end most businesses.
Hi, my name's Steven.
Hi, I'm April.
This is the 3 Pi Squared ABA Business Leaders podcast, where we discuss topics on how to create and grow an ethical and sustainable ABA practice.
Together, Steven and I owned a 7-figure ABA practice that provided both clinic and in-home services.
3 Pi Squared has helped over 900 ABA practices start up and expand with our comprehensive products and services geared specifically to ABA. Now, let's get to the podcast.
Welcome to ABA Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by 3 Pi Squared. I'm April.
I'm Steven.
And we have two guests with us today. I was going to say 2 great guests, and it came out as grest. So there we go. I made a new word. All right. So we have Chris and Meghan. We are going to be talking about owner burnout, but burnout specifically to what it's like to be the owner and have the financial responsibility, the decision fatigue, the all the things that ultimately fall on the owner. And you know, when in the beginning, we kind of expect that, right? Because we're wearing all the hats and we're working all the hours, and, you know, we're really focusing in those first couple of years of growing our business. And then at some point, hopefully we get to a place where we have supports and staff and procedures in place where we can kind of step back, or maybe step back might not be appropriate for everybody. We start doing other things, you know. But the responsibility and a lot of those early hats that we wore, their feeling is there that they could land back in our lap at any moment. Anyway, so that's going to be our conversation today. A little heavy, but I think it's an important conversation to have. And I bet a lot of you will relate. So first, let's start off by, I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves. Chris, why don't we start with you? You can introduce yourself, and then Meghan, you can hop in right after.
I'm Chris Robinson, and I'm an owner of a small, trying to be medium-sized ABA business in PA.
And I'm Meghan Robertson, and I am also the owner of a smaller Anchor. It's called Anchor ABA in Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Nice. Welcome to both of you. Yes, that's so, it's good to enunciate your last name. These guys do not know each other before this podcast. Well, this was a perfect example of how we get to connect and collaborate with lots of owners across the country. So thanks for introducing yourselves. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today to have this conversation.
You know, the last time we did kind of a similar topic, it was business owner burnout. I think it was season 1. And I think we had 6 people on that podcast. And 4 of them were no longer business owners.
Aww.
They were just done. They moved on. They sold, right? Like it's tough to maintain it.
Being an entrepreneur is tough in general. Being a business owner, you know, it's just a different skill set. And then in our field, we definitely have our barriers with dealing with insurance and Medicaid and all of the payers that we get to deal with, the turnover, the fact that we're in a new field, you know, especially new to the medical world, I guess you could say, with our licensures and being able to have insurance cover for services. So a lot of good with that too, but it does come with a lot of learning, a lot of learning curve, I guess I should say. So I don't know, where should we start? Maybe let's talk about how do you handle the pressure of being responsible for others' paycheck, stability, and future. Nothing heavy here. That sounds very, very ominous.
Just their entire livelihood.
Just their entire livelihood. How does that
Paying
feel,
the
guys?
rent and things like that.
That's a good question. I wish I had a great answer for you, and it's tough.
I think that's adequate, right? The fact that it's like so much, it's like, yeah, it's tough. And in some ways, you guys are probably like, do we really need to go there? Do you need to ask me that? Because it's probably those things that we try not to think too hard about.
I think it's so important too, if we're going to step into the role right out the gate of being a business owner and be responsible for other people, we have to look at our bottom line being the people and not so much the financial bottom line. This is something that I talk to my team about even in our interview process so that they know where I stand on this. I have always said, I'm a big fan of books, reading books and learning how to be a business owner through other people that have done it. And there's a book called People Over Profit. And that was always our kind of motto from the beginning. Well, my motto, it's just me. I call us as a team, but it's really just me. We have now, there's 11 of us as BCBAs, and I look at them and I say, okay, how can I benefit their lives? How can I then benefit the lives of the families that we work with? How can I benefit the lives of the children, whether it's my employees' children, my teammates' children, or the children and teenagers that we work with? If we can keep our focus there, I think the weight of the responsibility kind of shifts a little bit, because we can shift that into, rather than just looking at, okay, how are we going to make this work? How are we going to make this work? If we shift that focus to how can we help our people, generally speaking, turnover rates might go down. Cancellations, I don't know, they might go down. I don't have any empirical evidence for this, but what I do know is that when you really put your focus on the people that you're working with and working for, those stressors about money, it's not that they go away, but the purpose of why those things are important kind of pushes through the surface. And so I think it gives us a little bit more, just a more level-headed way to think about those things. So there's still stress involved in maintaining the homeostasis of the budget and all that. But at the end of the day, if somebody needs a day off, if they need extra PTO time, if family is going through a rough time and they need to cancel, if we can structure our business to be able to allow for those things, and then also structure it in a way that we're really putting the people first, maybe we won't have to worry so much about the inconsistencies that can sometimes come with the business. Not to say that we don't have them, because we do. By all means, I've had months where I don't get paid either.
Keeping the people-centered focus.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, in the podcast that we recorded today, that was one of the big focuses, is how do we support the team? And we looked at caseload management, and we looked at a lot of the pieces, and never was the response because it makes more money that way, or because we do it because, like, there was never a money focused response. However, so it's great to have the first, like the main focus be on that. But however, we still have to make enough money. Like, I don't know of any of us that are in this are like, oh, I'm going to make millions of dollars being an ABA business owner. I don't know. Maybe you did go into it. Well, sorry. But you still have to be able to be, what's the word, viable enough to be able to pay your staff, to train your staff, to, pay beyond those just billables, because it's not that simple transaction of billable out,
Yeah, you have to pay for benefits, maybe your staff want some vacation, right? Or sick days. So they want, and they would like pay for that. Drive time is something that,
well, if you have a clinic, whether you own or you you rent
Yeah.
or you know, supplies,
Yeah.
you know? So so obviously it takes money, to keep the company running, and it takes enough, and like it's a payroll heavy
Absolutely.
company. I don't know. So where do we walk that line?
I think it's really, really important when we're looking at how things are going to balance out in our budget and in payroll and in our billables and when money is coming in or when money is not coming in. One, to take into consideration that, yes, many of us are already BCBAs and maybe got into the business because we were BCBAs and we saw the need for the therapy world in our area to grow and advance and just continue to improve, and offered maybe different things or services than other companies were offering. You know, we all find our little space in the world. But I think that if we do that and then we also don't know how to run a business, those stressors get a lot bigger, because you might know how to be an exceptional BCBA. You may have been in the field your entire adult life. You may have siblings who are disabled or multiply disabled. There may be things in your life that have prepared you perfectly for this role as a behavior analyst. But unless you take the steps to then educate yourself equally, if not more, as a business owner, I think that we can come into this role very idealistic and really get not underwater, but get in over our head a little bit at moments, or maybe continuously, and not really know how to work through budget issues, not really know how to balance a P&L report, a profit and loss statement monthly or at the end of the year. Maybe just flying by the seat of our pants and hoping that the money works itself out at the end of the month and the end of the year. And so I think to an extent, there's definitely variables that we can control and we can't control. But if we can educate ourselves in that realm of running a business, I think that it allows us then to see it from both the therapeutic side, the clinical side, where, okay, we are doing what's best for our kids and our clients and their families and our staff, but we're also making these decisions over here on this side as a business owner, so that they can both blend together in a way that actually makes sense. Now, I'm not one to choose people over profit to completely run a company into the ground. Like you said, we have to be able to pay the bills. If we're considering people first, we have to make sure that they can still get paid. But we have to know so much about the business side of things that we don't learn in school. And it's really on us then to take the steps to learn outside of just ABA, and then learn also how to run a business.
Hey, April, you remember that time we forgot to do benefit checks and that client switched insurance companies?
Yes. We lost like $20,000. That was brutal. I don't want to talk about it.
Honestly, that was one of the most frustrating parts of running a practice. Just trying to keep up with benefit checks, co-pays, prior authorizations. It was a full-time job.
Mm-hmm. And if you miss even one detail, it can cost you thousands.
What if I told you that somebody can handle all of that for you? Run benefit checks, track eligibility, manage prior authorizations, so you could confidently bill and stop wasting your time in payer portals.
I would say, please sign me up now. And where were you 10 years ago?
Yes. That's exactly what Silma does. Their platform automates your entire upfront insurance workflow. A benefits check done in under 30 seconds. TRICARE prior auth under 3 minutes. That's hours of admin work saved every single week.
Silma is already working in 48 states, supporting over 50,000 patients, and they're rated #1 for prior auths on G2. If you're ready to stop chasing paperwork and get time back to focus on your staff and clients, go to silmahealth.com or click the link in our show notes.
Be sure to mention 3Pi to get an extended free pilot and special pricing just for our listeners.
It is a different skill set, just like RBT to BCBA. Like there's some overlaps in those skills, but not every great RBT would make a great BCBA. And then BCBA to business owner, like there's some overlap. Being a good clinician definitely helps you to recognize what it takes for others to be successful, but it's also a different skill set. So if you just have the clinician skill set and not that business skill set, you could definitely run into a lot of problems. And taking it back to burnout, that's kind of like one issue that I recognize that I have, because I used to love going to like CEUs and learning new interventions and new techniques. And I don't find myself doing that anymore. I'm going to OBM CEUs, which is what the information that I need, but it's not the information that I used to love getting.
That makes perfect sense. There's a lot of shifting in that.
I think, one of the things that we run into more often than I would like, and I can understand and appreciate the circumstance, but I'll hear from BCBA business owners where they're subsidizing a really terrible rate with one that is sustainable and profitable, so that they can see as many children as they possibly can and help, right? So their focus is primarily on helping the kids, and that's great. But what happens if that payer that's actually subsidizing this other payer stops paying, right? What if you get a recoupment audit, or they terminate your contract? These are real things that happen. And so now we're in this situation where every case that we're taking, we're losing money on. This doesn't help anybody. This is the kids that you're seeing are not going to continue getting services. Your employees are no longer going to get paid. You're putting yourself in a really difficult position, all in the name of helping as many people as you can. And it's really difficult to see people in that position where they're doing this for the best intentions, but they're getting themselves into a really stressful situation where the math only works if they work 90 hours a week, right? Because they can't afford to hire another BCBA because the rates are too low. So it both have to be done, and they have to be done well, or the company will not survive.
Part of that, it's interesting that we are just kind of having this conversation before, and April and I have talked about it in the past. Taking on a contract that may not be as profitable as another contract. Now, we have been in a situation before where it was not sustainable, and we had to close out that payer altogether, and we no longer work with that insurance company. It's unfortunate, and I hated doing it. But it just it did not make sense, and it limited our ability to grow. It limited our ability to really put a lot of new staff into new positions. And so I feel like that in doing that and in taking on that payer, it actually kept us from working with more kids. It limited our ability to do that. Whereas now we still have payers that pay very, very different rates. But every month I go in and I've created kind of a very specific detailed P&L report that looks every single month. Who billed what? How many hours did they bill? How many hours of travel time do we pay? How many hours of non-billable paperwork? All of our BCBAs, we only have BCBAs. And so they're all hourly based on how many hours they want to work, based on their own family needs and whether they want to reduce hours in the summer or things like that. So it's really flexible. But I look at our travel time, our non-billable rates, how many hours if someone needed additional mentorship. And then I look at, okay, what's getting paid? What's not getting paid? What did we just not collect because there was an error somewhere? And then if we can pull that down, it's probably out of 11 staff, I think I have like a 16-page Excel document that all connects to itself in many different ways. It makes my brain hurt. But at the end of it, I know every single month how much we have to work with, how much we can flex, how much the company is bringing in per hour, per therapist, per client. And then I can make those decisions in a way that not only is just hopeful, like, oh, maybe we can add this other payer who pays less, but I know exactly what we can do and how I can kind of guide those business decisions based on that specific information going into the decision-making process.
Yeah, I think that's a like that isn't, again, it's not, you're not being greedy. This isn't, oh, we have to worry, like everything is focused on profit. This is making knowledge-based decisions, right? This is collecting data, and now we have this data, and now we can make a decision based on this. I think that's just really smart, and I know, with us, we were winging it the whole time, right? Like, I think, we would just, what else are you supposed to do? You sign the contract. There's nothing else to this. That's what you do. And the rates, well, I mean, this is what they're going to give us. What else are we supposed to do? And that's how we went into it, not realizing what this really meant until we, later was like, wow, we can't do this. And that, again, that's not how you want to do this. This is like you said, Meghan, you're not going to be able to help as many kids. You're not going to be able to be as flexible. You're going to be more worried about, what can I do here? Do I need these billable hours, or can I offer this training? And that's a horrible situation to find yourself in, where you're like having to choose between those two things, right? So,
or having to choose between two clients, because I know that there are some companies that will pay hourly rates that are different based on the different reimbursement level. And so I feel personally like I want my therapists and my teammates to reschedule kids based on their own schedules.
Yeah.
Like, if this child needs more hours, give them more hours. You shouldn't get a decrease in pay. And I shouldn't care so much about the decrease in pay from the reimbursements if I know what our numbers are going into it. We're not going to make decisions as to how many hours this child gets versus how many hours that child gets, because this one over here, we're going to get a higher reimbursement for. I understand to an extent we have to be aware of those numbers and how they fluctuate, which is why I really look at it monthly, because we have to know. We can't, if we go under, all of these kids don't get help.
Yeah.
But it also, you have to be able to grow with that. And being able to grow means there's more money in the account to bring on a new therapist, to add a new teammate, to bring in another support person. And so that's all part of that growth process. And then you get to help more families.
Yeah. So, Chris, you found yourself in a situation where you grew your leadership team. You had some ups and downs in your journey of being a business owner, and then you were at the point where you grew your leadership team, and you also found yourself in the role of, dad, and a new baby came into your life, and you had mentioned before how you kind of felt like it was a forced step back. And then you reflected on what that felt like, and then coming back into the role. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Lots of different parts and that
Right?
we can talk about.
Yeah.
I think for this talk, my goal has always been to have the business be set up so that it can run without me. So we have good leaders in place and good structures and good policies, so that I'm not a necessary everyday part of the business. And that had been a long goal. And I feel like we've finally gotten there. And I had always thought that, like, oh, if I can just get it to this point, like, that's going to solve so many problems. And then I can just relax. And we finally got it to that point. And I probably would have never, truly backed off a little bit had it not been for the baby and being forced to back off. So in a way that was kind of a good thing, but we did get it to that point, and I was able to back off, and they did awesome without me. But then as I stepped back, I was able to take a different look at things, and a couple events happened, and ends up that having an awesome leadership team is really expensive.
Yeah.
has a lot of great benefits, but then that also causes some more problems. So then while I was out, just the way payrolls and taxes hit and things, like the first 2 weeks of January this year, $400,000 came out of our business account between payroll and taxes and benefits and regular monthly expenses. Because payroll hit the first week of January and then taxes hit January 15th. And that's when the second payroll, and our payrolls are about 100,000. And everything that we had, like we had a good amount saved up. And then all of a sudden it was just all gone. And like we just started the year, in the red.
Chris, I actually have a question for you because I think that I know you're much farther into growth than we are. I'm not exactly sure of how big we will get because I really love our small structure. But just out of curiosity, when did you decide to make those steps? Because it's just been within the last year that I have hired administrative people, other BCBAs to help with evaluation reviews and just things that I was doing all on my own for the first 8 years or however many years we've been in business. And it's been a huge shift for me. We already had somebody doing billing and things like that, but just to start offloading some of those day-to-day tasks so that if I was away for a day on vacation or sick or something, I didn't get back to work the next day and have a million emails and everything needed to be done immediately. What was your timeline as far as growth when hiring people?
Like you, we already have a billing team. They needed support and supervised. And my first step was a clinical director to try to handle the day-to-day clinical needs. So I'm not getting phone calls like all hours of the day about these little minor fires and this person showed up 15 minutes late and this thing happens, because that really bogs you down. And then hired an HR director to handle like interviews and things like that, because that was taking up a ton of time. And then after that, as we grew a little bit, we just sort of added a few more HR positions. And we had a very like unique set of circumstances. And if you work at ABA, like we made this joke about like don't drink the water at company events, because we had less than 50 staff and we had 8 babies in one calendar year, which caused its own problems of shifting things around and supervision and such. But we ended up promoting our clinical director, bringing another clinical director in, and the previous clinical director is now basically doing everything that I used to do, supervising all the departments. And that has been just the best thing that ever could have happened, because she is wonderful in her role. And it used to be, as an owner, you used to handle every single little fire, and then you're supervising the departments. So they handle the little fires, but the big fires then come up to you. And now only the really, really big fires come up to me. And when they do, it's normally like, hey, this happened and we've already looked into it and met with this person and we found this out and I think we should take this action. What do you think? And it's either like, let's talk about this a little bit more, or yeah, that's perfect. Run with it. So that has shifted so much responsibilities off of my plate. But at the same time, it's one of those things where like, I feel like as an owner, like you always feel like, oh, when this next thing happens, like that's going to help so much. And like, oh my gosh, like success is and like independence is always like right around the corner. So even though like I have to admit, like I have it pretty good. Like I have an excellent team. Like I feel like I have less stress than probably most owners because of the way that we have the team set up. But then I try to shield them from the financial part of running the business, and that's still all on me. And that, like, I'm finding that alone is a really big weight. And in a way, it's actually almost kind of counterproductive, because before I'm busy running around like a chicken with my head cut off, putting out all those fires all the time. And when something, when we're short coming up on a payroll and I don't really have time to panic because I'm too busy putting out all those fires. And now I'm just find myself just staring at the computer, checking my bank account and QuickBooks and our AR report like 50 times a day.
I think that was one of the things I heard resounding from so many business owners, especially at the beginning of this year because of this transition with TRICARE. Now, we're in Hampton Roads, so almost everyone, I can't imagine anyone that doesn't, but I would say most companies here take TRICARE because we have the largest military installation in the world. And so for us, with such a huge number of our clients having TRICARE insurance, we did not get paid for the first 4 months of the year, all the way through April. We ended up getting escalated to the vice president of claims. We escalated ourselves to talk with our congresswoman. And so we had to take all these extra steps. But in the meantime, like you said, I wanted to take that financial burden, and I never even told anyone. I didn't tell any of our team. I didn't tell any of our families. And then eventually it was reported on our local news, and one of our parents asked. And I thought, okay, now's the time to let everyone know this is happening. We're on top of it. We're not reducing hours. We're not discharging anyone. We're going to see this through because it's not my first rodeo with not getting paid. And we have money in savings to help float these situations. But that can be so difficult. And like you said, taking that financial burden and not allowing others to see it can be really stressful, even if everything is working right. Because yes, your payroll might be 100,000, you said, every month. That's a lot of money, but there's a lot of money going out, a lot of money coming in, and then a lot of money going right back out again. And so just because it's more income doesn't necessarily mean it's less stress, because at any given moment, that bank account can dwindle. And so, yeah, I appreciate what you said about just feeling like you are now responsible for the big situations, where I'm getting there. I still love being with my families and being a really big part of my team's process. But I'm getting to the point where I have to hire people so that we can continue to grow, because BCBAs are contacting us asking if they can apply and get an interview. And I'm thinking, well, that's wonderful. We would love to add another BCBA to our team, but I don't know how I'm going to do all of this by myself. And so it's been a process for me, and just recognizing that I don't have to be the one to do everything. I take that on personally, but it's been a learning process to let go of that and allow people I trust to take on some of those tasks, so that it does allow us to grow.
Can we rewind for a little bit? You said you didn't get paid for 4 months.
Yeah. From TRICARE. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the end of
sadly,
April.
Megan's story is not the only one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would end most businesses.
It did.
Yes.
There were many small companies that just completely shut their doors. There were companies that closed offices in certain locations, primarily large military areas. There were a lot of companies that just stopped taking TRICARE clients or discharged them with their 40-day notice, 45-day notice. It was bad, and it's still not cleared up completely. We on the TRICARE portal, we have 3 addresses. We only should have 1, but we are apparently also located at a homeschool program and at a Harris Teeter. So I think that it's still ongoing. We thankfully got paid in April, and it's been consistent since then. But yeah, a lot of the smaller companies did shut down, and maybe some of the larger companies, I don't know, maybe they just stopped.
Yeah, I
And that's
remember
not
I remember when we switched from T codes to the 9 codes, and that was a nightmare, right? Like there they didn't know how to bill it. They didn't know what to do with these codes. They would be denied, saying we need to submit the T codes, but our authorizations were the new 9 codes. It was like there were months, and yeah, that's when
We had to look into
Chris
like
said,
our
right?
backup. Yeah.
I was just that's all I really had to do. I had removed scheduling and billing from my life, and I was great and wonderful. And now all I had to worry about was, hey, were we getting paid on time? And then you go with that, right? And it's like, okay, I'm just looking at the bank account. Are we gonna make it? Are we gonna make it? Are we, and it's this so stressful. And then the other a bit of PTSD I can still remember was waiting for the email. Who's gonna quit, right? Like, just, oh, by the way, and how many hours are we going to lose, and what's that going to do? And like those things were just, they were constantly weighing on me. It was those were just,
Well, and that being said, I mean, we had really low turnover for
totally.
most, but still,
but it
like
was still
people would make life changes, and then I mean, you're like happy for them, but then it's like a huge stress.
Yeah.
Well, and then to go back to like the uncertainty of payment in Florida, like a lot is happening, right?
Well, there was that whole Change Health thing where like no one was able to submit claims for that. I mean,
So
We got hit with that too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, not to provide more nightmares. I mean, I'm sure these are already amongst the nightmares because they were for us. But yeah, the uncertainty, knowing that, okay, what happens if any payer at any time doesn't pay, and that's what we ran our company debt free. And until COVID, we
did the PPP
got help for that. We're getting that money now, by the way, 2025.
Yeah,
we just got noticed it was
ERC.
approved, and now we're starting to get that money 5 years later. So, I mean, and I think that might be, when people say that running an ABA business is just different and it just feels harder and it feels more alone. I wonder if there's there's obviously multiple factors, but I kind of feel like for me, it's the isolated part where just the culture within ABA and BCBAs, the culture that we're trying to shift is like, we're all, what's the word? Where you're trying to get somebody else's business.
Oh, very competitive.
You were competitors.
Yes.
That's we're competitors and we're like competing and not collaborating. So therefore we're less likely to reach out because they might steal my clients or what. I think that's, you guys who have listened to this podcast know that that's not how I believe.
Yeah.
But then also the perfectionistic culture of it's really hard to reach out and ask for help because I'm a BCBA and I know everything now. And again, if you've listened to this podcast more than once, then you know my stand on that. But then there's also the uncertainty of like how the payment works and in the kind of scale that we're at, especially with the smaller companies, right? And maybe this happens in private practice and like other medical professions. I don't know to what scale. It obviously must happen at some way because they're dealing with insurance too. But then there's that nature of ABA in insurance where it's still new and it's still growing and there's still a lot of question. And I think that uncertainty there can really, really throw a kink in things. And so it's really knowing, okay, what can I do to protect our company? What can I do? Like, do I have 6 months worth of payroll in the bank? Is that even enough? Do I, as
That's
we
my
grow?
question.
Yeah.
How did you survive 4 months of not getting paid? Is TRICARE your only source, or do you have diverse funding sources, or did you have 4 months or more of? Did you have a giant line of credit? Because that's something that I'm working on trying to get reconfigured, and that's its own issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of those things. We do have a line of credit if we ever need it. I did have more than 4 months worth of payroll and expenses saved up because we had gone through multiple issues in the past with TRICARE, with other insurance companies, just non-payment or delayed payment or denied plan, things like that just happen. And we also have multiple funding sources. And so I think all three of those things again, this kind of goes back into knowing how to be a good BCBA, but also the business owner side of it. I think we have to have all of these business owner financial preparation tasks checked off the list, because you just never know when to expect the worst. And maybe we just, of course, now we know why burnout is a thing, because here we are talking about all the stressors of just one area, which is the finances. It makes the company move every day. But yeah, we had to have all of those things in line. And fortunately did not have to pull out of our line of credit. But it's one of those things that I just felt like we need to have in case anything would happen. My focus was I didn't want the families to be impacted. I didn't want the kids to be impacted. I didn't want my team to even feel that there was any problem at all. And I happily can bear the burden of the financial stress. But I mean, when we think about being a business owner and burnout and how to relieve burnout, so many posts and things that I see on Facebook are like, oh, well, I take walks and I do this and, I get a massage. I don't have time for a massage either, but, there's so many little things that we can do to help with burnout. But if we're not addressing the really big issues, like having that financial backing. So if anything does go off the rails, it's okay. We'll figure it out. It will be fine. We'll get through it. Just keep moving forward. Everything is fine. And then having people on your team so that you're not the one responsible for doing it all, which it sounds like you've mastered that part of it. I'm still kind of learning that part. That those are the things that have been most helpful to me that have nothing to do with burnout. Really, it's more to do with how to structure the business.
Yeah, I think that's important is looking at the why behind everything, right? Like being curious and like not only knowing your values and to help guide you, but knowing where those gaps are, even in your knowledge, like the gaps, skill sets that you need, what supports do you need? And it's not that like you're not trying hard enough or you're not putting in enough work. Like sometimes we just need other systems in place to help support what we can't hold or handle or what we don't want to. Yeah. And so if burnout can really come from so many different, we could talk about the different definitions of burnout. We could talk about the different causes of burnout. I think we could each have our own story of what it means to us. But I think you hit on something important. It's kind of getting to the bottom of it. And yeah, like it's like looking at the function of the behavior. I mean, and making sure that we're not avoiding or, the matter, that we're actually addressing and like learning the skill that we need to like help us through that moment. Because, right, you could be so burnt out and maybe your burnout is because you don't have enough money saved that if you did, you're hearing about these other companies not getting paid and you're like, wait, hold on a minute. If that happens to me, like I have nothing in place. Yeah. So I'm going to go get a massage and just escape it all, forget about it. You're still going to be there when you come back. Yeah. And there's absolutely a place for self-care. And I think that's a part of it. But yes, like, okay, so what do I do? What tools do I need? Who do I need to reach out to?
Yeah, I think that just goes back to, again, like you can't accept these contracts that are so low that if something happens, like, your main funder goes under or he stops paying you for 4 months, that actually continuing on these other cases, you're losing money. Like this, it cannot work.
Okay,
right?
But I agree. I agree with that 100%. Like we really need to be careful about the rates that and we need to be not just careful. Like there's a certain way to go about calculating what rates we can afford to accept and all of that. That's a big part of it. But it's, I guess that is where I'm going is like, how do I know what those rates should be. And then, okay, let's say I've got good competitive rates, but it's also knowing how to use that money wisely, right? Oh, I got these great rates. I'm going to give everybody X amount of training every week, or I'm going to hire a director of directors, like whatever, right?
Yep.
But it's like you also, there still has to be like rhyme and reason to how to spend the money also.
Yep, totally. Yeah. I mean, that financial advisor, I highly recommend having a really good accountant. I mean, shout out to Margin Keepers. This is kind of what they do. I think it's worthwhile having a conversation with them so that they can help with this, or having an accountant that can help you with that you can trust, and they can do some, a budgeting and forecasting, because again, like these are not like rare things that happen. A delayed payment of 2 months is it happens quite often, right? And
or if you make errors in your billing and then you get denials, you get a big batch of denials.
Yes. Or, we were dealing with another customer where the one of their clients was like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I changed my insurance 3 months ago, and now you've been seeing this client 40 hours a week for 3 months, and you're not going to get paid. And so these things happen all the time. So having that system in place, knowing I've got 6 months, or I've got this, one great way to get some cheap money is like, if you can get some credit cards through the business. That's what we did, during that T code thing. Like, man, we blew through $400,000 in payroll, and we went through our savings account, right? And it was like, okay, what? And so
yeah, we were even like we were getting we reached out to my dad, and he was like looking into his retirement to see like that was going to be worst case scenario, right? Because you have to pay your staff, and we knew that once we get that, we used to call it like money in insurance land, like up in insurance land, like we know it's there, or it's just not here yet. And so like that was the only thing that grounded us, is because we knew it was there. We just didn't know when we were going to get it. So that did feel a little safer.
Yeah, and then I used a balance transfer on a couple of credit cards. We got about $80,000 to make the payroll, and then we finally got paid. But like these things happen all the time, and so having those things in place, those worst case scenario, what are we going to do if this happens? How are we going to handle this? Something that I was talking with someone. She got into an accident, and now she can't see clients right now. So what are you going to do with that? Like, I often hear this, like, I'm pregnant. I'm going off. How do I continue getting my staff, their supervision? How do we continue billing these cases? I'm the only BCBA. So these things they happen all the time. And so having some vision of how that's going to look is really important,
So I have a proposal.
Yeah.
So if we end this
right here
at part 1, and then we come back on and we talk about some of those things that we can put into place.
Sure.
Is that something that we all feel like we could contribute to? Because we talk about like a lot of the problems, a lot of the barriers, a lot of the, hardships and stuff. But we really like to try to not leave it at that. Like, let's give some action plan. And I feel like this is super important. So this is all for today, guys. And those of you listening, and tune in next week, and we will have part 2.
And so if you have nothing else to panic about, just think about this for a week. And
and then I know it feels really terrible. It feels really yucky leaving it on this note, but we will be back for you.
Tune in next time.
Next week. I know it feels very, very cheesy and weird, but I want for us to be able to focus on this, and I don't, because otherwise we have about 10 more minutes and we're at time now.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be dropping it here. So I really want to make sure that we allow time that we can record a little more so that we can talk about maybe some strategies moving forward. So Chris and Meghan, thank you so much for showing up today and talking about the hard things. And for those of you listening, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to tuning in to us. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Hopefully it was helpful. If you would like to gain access to this entire video and actually our entire library of videos, please join our ABA Business Leaders membership. You can find that at www.3pisquare.com.